I'm more of a guy who works. I like developing writers. I like identifying material. And then I kind of go in and I vouch for the people that you're bringing in. So I go in and say, Neal Brennan's one of the funniest guys around, which fortunately he is. Or I go in and say, Jesse Armstrong, Succession, we should do this. I'll direct the pilot. So you kind of vouch for stuff and then you oversee it and make sure it doesn't go off the rails. And then you jump in as a writer. You can jump in for casting, for helping with directing. So yeah, it's
and
really
it used to be for Amin and Zach, like it used to be, there would just be these producers who didn't really know. Before Judd and McKay, the producers were never funny. They were just guys who would go like, I remember a guy, I remember there was a guy who had produced, I want to say Dumb and Dumber, don't quote me, but me and Chappelle were at the Sky Bar, which is a big bar in Hollywood. This is in the 90s. And a guy saw Dave and goes, I loved you when, what was your last picture? He literally said, I loved you in what was your last picture? So like these guys they just knew that guy's hot. And then,
right.
And then now the great thing about the reason like kind of movies have gotten actually funnier and less kind of goofy premisey, 80s and 90s goofy premisey, like a guy who drinks a potion and turns into whatever, is because Adam and Judd and Sandler, to a lesser extent, but like actually funny people are in charge of what comedies get made. Instead of now McKay's moved on to deciding what financial wry sexy dramas get made.
Right.
Psychosexual. We'll go with psychosexual, McKay.
I like how you got sexy in there. Like I'm wrong. In fact, because you said that, I'm going to make a super sexy financial drama next. A lot of.
I mean, there's something sexy about Succession, right? Like it's like, I don't know, not that would make it interesting. But you know,
I know what you mean. Well, I think
song.
that kind of high price, kind of penthouse living. I think money just has inherent sex. I think you just said more about yourself than anything that's going on around.
Probably, but isn't that what podcasting is all about at the end of the day?
I'm just glad we're away from the 80s and 90s from those ridiculous premise movies, and we get things like, Little Nicky. And that's my
That was,
That's actually, Little Nicky's pretty, I think Little Nicky's actually kind of funny. It's an underrated one. Here was my premise, Neal, during the peak of the body switching movies. It was a guy who worked at a video store. This is how old this idea is. This idea is 25 years old.
Yep.
And he was super cynical, and he's going through all the movies, bitching about all the movies where someone drinks a potion and can't tell a lie. Someone switches bodies so they can understand their child. Someone, a rainbow goes through them so then they have a heart. And he's taken all the movies off the shelf and he's like, we're not going to rent any of this crap anymore. And he fills them. There's like 50 of them, puts them in a box, and he's putting them on the shelf, and they fall and hit him in the head.
Mm-hmm.
And
nobody saw that. Nobody would have seen that coming.
It's 25 years old. I mean,
no, I'm kidding.
It's like a forkball in a sports metaphor.
The Ephus pitch.
Yeah.
But yeah, they made a lot of those, man. That was the big thing in the 80s and 90s was those kinds of movies. Are we supposed to be talking about the goods, by the way? Because Neal and I can definitely shoot the shit for hours.
Yeah, I mean, I think people would rather you guys shoot the shit than us ask you questions. But I'm happy to talk about the goods if you guys are into that. Like, what was the toughest casting decision for that movie? Because I'm sure you wanted a lot of people in there.
They were all sort of obvious. It felt like, you know what I mean? It just felt like, him. It was like Catherine Hahn had been in Step Brothers, so she had been in maybe Step Brothers hadn't come out.
Hahn was someone, she actually went and did like some network show for 7 years, so we hadn't heard of her because we hadn't seen the show.
Crossing Jordan.
Oh my God, man.
Was that a real answer or was that a joke answer? I don't know.
I only know that because I was watching dailies at my house and I had a friend over and she was like, oh, that's the girl from Crossing Jordan. I was like, what? I had no idea. I'd seen promos for Crossing Jordan forever. McKay, you'll enjoy this. I do a thing now when people ask me what I'm up to. I tell them that I'm on. There's so many shows now you can just make shows up. So I say I'm third lead on a show called X-Ray Tech.
Oh, I love that show.
Which is about an X-ray technician who solves crimes.
I'm going to say 80% of the people you tell that to think it's real.
Great show.
Why? How could they find out that it's not? There's too many. Just say it's on Apple TV.
I'm on a show called Apple Ridge. And it's just about like a bunch of young people who grew up in this area, kind of in the middle of the country. And I'm the social studies teacher, and I have like 4 lines every episode, and I crack a joke.
Yeah, and your daughters love you for it.
They love me for it. It makes them happy. It's on the CW. Yeah. Like,
I don't even know if the CW still exists.
It's got to.
I honestly have no idea. Yeah.
Where else will I watch a drama about Archie and Jughead?
Is that real?
Yeah.
Oh, is that the CW?
That's the CW. That's where you get it.
Okay. I've heard of that, but I only, I've heard of that because of the comics, because I grew up on it.
Is USA Network still around?
No, that can't be it. I think it's just wrestling.
That's where they show hockey highlights.
Right. They do. They still do that USA Up All Night with Gilbert Gottfried. They still do that. McKay, do you know? The last time I saw was Elvira and Gilbert Gottfried.
Are both of them still with us?
I think they are both still with us.
Okay, good.
Yeah, they're still with us.
All right, good.
Yeah, they would host TV shows, and it was totally entertainment free.
That's tough to do. That's hard to do.
They would just, I don't know what they would just cut a commercial and then have them do wraparounds for 30 seconds. It was awful. It was it's so bad.
Can I tell you the absolute high point of all of network television? When we were at SNL, one of the guys who was in charge of late night, God, I can't remember his name, Gary something. He got in charge of late night. He used to run parking at Burbank. By the way, God bless him. I'm sure he's a lovely guy. But anyway, there was a Friday night video show that used to be on.
Sure.
And he figured out that the show kind of couldn't lose money because it was so cheap. So he got his wife to host it. And every Friday night you would see the show, and then he would have his wife sing songs. And his wife wasn't really particularly famous. She was just kind of a pretty lady who could sing a little bit. And she would show videos and then sing like a couple songs. And that was Friday night videos for like 2 years. And he just slipped it under the radar. And I would ask everyone, like, how is this show on? Like, what's going on? They're like, there's not losing money in that time slot. But yeah, that was when you knew.
And a little known trivia, their son, Carson Daly, same thing.
Yep.
They gave birth to Carson Daly, and then that's how that happened.
Right. Well, speaking of fake people, I've got a question for you guys. The writers Andy Stock and Rick Stempson, are these real people? Because they don't have an IMDb like catalog other than this movie and like one other short thing.
They're definitely real guys. I mean, we rewrote it, but they were really nice guys. I've not seen them since that. Neil, do you once or twice a year meet them?
Yeah, a couple times a year. Guys, come on out. They're going to join us.
This is so cool.
Method Man. No one saw this coming. And they're...
Adam's actually been lying on them the whole time.
Didn't they live in Omaha or something? They lived in the middle of the country. And I don't know if they weren't interested in coming out. I bet they would have been interested. I guess we never made the overture that we hoped we would make. We just, guys, when you get to shooting, guys, filmmaking is war, and things happen, and invitations get lost, and you know what I mean?
Right.
Let's just focus on the ones that did make it to Alhambra, where we shot. And
that's no joke, by the way. That is where the movie was shot, Alhambra.
Yeah, it's a section of LA. That
most stories I remember from this movie, Neil, are what's his name, the older character actor who was in the Blues Brothers.
Yes.
Sorry,
his name?
it's contagious.
Charles
The
Durning?
name spacing, but he's the guy who runs the country western band. We're the
Yeah.
good old boys in the Blues
Yeah.
Brothers.
Charles Durning.
And he's, what is it?
Charles Durning?
Nope.
No.
Thanks, Roy.
That was
Kinda-
stupid.
Charles Durning, you're thinking of Tootsie, but that's okay.
Guys, you can look it up. If you,
No,
if you
I like
thought
this
Rick
better.
No, this is
Stempson
better
and
quality,
Andy
yeah.
Stock. Go ahead.
Anyway, this
He played
couple
Dick
pair-
Lewiston.
Yes.
Uh,
That's a great.
the funny thing was
Yes.
he got like hammered at the premiere, and I had to like walk him back to his room.
Charles
like,
Napier.
like a Charles Napier. Yep.
Napier. That's
I had
it.
to walk him back to his room. And then, McKay, this is so fucking funny. So he would call me every 6 months and he'd be drunk, and he'd try to convince me that we had to make a movie about Meryl Haggard.
Oh, I love that.
But he meant it. He's like, Neil, man, I'm telling you what, man, we gotta make this movie about Merle, man, because I mean, he's dying, man. We got to do this before he goes.
Oh.
And I couldn't explain to him, like, dude, I can't get a fucking. I'll be lucky if I directed another comedy, let alone a Meryl Haggard biopic.
No, but that's
that
my-
should be like that should be a wake up service you can get at hotel rooms. Is Charles Napier. I am so jealous that you got 3 or 4 of those calls. That is
I mean, I remember he said, like another quote that I remember is they got their, they put on there. He was talking about the Marvel movies, and he goes, they put on their costumes and their big monster boots clomping around.
Not wrong.
It was incredible. It was nothing short of incredible.
Yeah, he really was. Like, it was all old school Hollywood stories where they would all end with, so I punched him in the jaw, picked up his hand, lifted him off the ground. We walked off set and we didn't come back for 3 days. And, and we didn't sleep or stop drinking for 3 days. And then you're kind of like, oh, that's awesome. And then you think about actually what happened, which is 2 grown men assaulted each other and then gave themselves alcohol poisoning and cost a production hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But one of them was Robert Mitchum.
Oh, he had a lot of Mitchum stories. That's
he did
right.
have a lot. He used to call him Dad. I called him Dad. It was like, if you guys remember the Bill Brasky sketch that McKay wrote, it was just like a live Bill Brasky.
So good, man. Lots of Robert Mitchum stories. Yeah, he was like Robert Mitchum's. What do? They put like a sheep with a racehorse to keep the racehorse calm when you transport it.
Yes.
Yeah, and he was like Mitchum's guy like that, except as far as I can tell, every story, that whole concept did not work because usually he just went with them and drank for 3 days. So, yeah.
Like Bob, he didn't have to twist my arm. Bob would just give me a look and I knew it was time.
That was Mitchum's sober buddy. Was a guy who liked to drink just a little bit less than he did.
Yeah. I worked for the rehab facility. Just did a really horrible job.
Charles Napier, legendary.
Yeah.
That was definitely a
Crossing
highlight.
Jordan. Craig Robinson was very funny. The DJ request, that's a very funny idea.
Yeah.
That made me laugh. Yeah.
The guy who just would not play what he would ask for requests and then specifically not play them. That's a very funny joke.
Nobody tells DJ requests to play.
Heckner was very, very funny. Could improvise all day long.
Yep. And
Riggle.
Who else? Yeah, Riggle.
Yeah. Playing a child.
Yeah, it was funny people. And what's his name? The guy who's married to Barbara Streisand.
James Brolin.
James Brolin.
Yeah.
Oh
James
my God.
Brolin. God damn it. James Brolin.
Funny moments in that movie, man. Yeah, the casting was kind of like went as well as it could go as far as like we kind of got quality people for all those roles. And then we had a nice, like pretty sizable cameo from Farrell where he killed it too.
All right. I literally forget about that. Okay, by the way, I have your arm on a trophy. It's mounted on a trophy, and it's above my toilet.
Oh my God!
In the guest room, where you keep the funny stuff. The guest bathroom, you'll may joke it up. My bathroom's for serious achievements.
So, you mentioned James Brolin, and there was one negative review of this movie that I actually found very funny, which said, and maybe you guys will disagree, but the funniest thing about The Goods is that the presence of James Brolin pretty much ensures that Barbara Streisand will have to watch it at least once.
Saw it happen.
You did?
Saw it happen.
Oh, that's good.
She was in the I'll never forget it. She said it was cute.
Oh, wow.
Is that a good
So,
thing?
I don't know.
I think go fuck yourself. From what I can tell, I'm doing the math on this, and go fuck yourself.
Yeah. It's
I don't
definitely
see
not.
what choice I have to. The next thing I have to say is go fuck yourself. And Alan Thicke was incredibly funny.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God,
Legend.
Alan Thicke is great in it. Yeah.
Yes.
And Ed
Alan
Helms,
Thicke.
a little, a young, almost rookie season Eddie Helms, choking up on the bat, flashing a good glove.
Yeah, he would get to. If we were started shooting at 6 a.m., he'd get there at 5, even if he wasn't shooting till 1 in the afternoon. He was just excited to be there.
Yeah. Now he's dead. Now you look in his eyes and he's just dead.
Yeah, he's just looking at the. You know what's funny? This is McKay. I don't know if I ever told you this. We were shooting, guys. When you shoot driving scenes, you you have to. And Jeremy had a monologue in a minivan. And so you have to drive the same route over and over so that when he says the line, it probably matches the background. And Ving tried to convince me that he didn't need to be in the third take, anything past the third take, because he's like, I had my eyes closed anyway, Neil.
Oh, that's a veteran.
Yeah, he thought I'd be like, yeah. You know what? You don't. If your eyes are closed, if you're not seeing the scene, then the scene can't see you. You're free to go, sir.
That's good math.
Jedi mind trick.
Yeah, I like that.
I did do a fucking hilarious thing when we were doing those scenes and we'd be driving back to the starting mark. I made an offer. I go, if any of you guys would like to try Jeremy's monologue yourself, go ahead and do it. No one took up the offer.
By the way, Neil, I'm gonna brag a little bit on the movie a little bit more. Legitimately good ending for a comedy, which is hard, where they have to do a salesman to salesman lot sale, and he's got to sell Helms the Smokey and the Bandit car. Like, actually a pretty clever ending for a movie about salesmen, and pretty well done too. And kind of, because that's the hardest thing with these comedies is you have to have a happy ending. Like, legally you're bound to do it. And that was actually like a fairly clever, satisfying ending. I mean, this is me saying it.
You know what's the funny joke of that? There's a few funny jokes, but I think we ended up using this take where I had Catherine Hahn say, if he sells this car, I'll eat my own pussy.
Oh yeah, that's in the movie. That is in the movie.
And for the ADR, for the clean version, I said, if he sells this car, I'll eat my own peanuts, which means nothing.
Right.
Now,
or it's way dirtier than the original one.
Yeah, exactly. The thing where when he does the parachute down, and then what's his name is walking behind him.
TJ Miller.
TJ Miller is connected to him for the first 10 feet, and then Jeremy stops and says, "Would you get him?" Jeremy says, he's like, "All right, yeah, I'll get out of here." That was funny. Yeah, there was a bunch of funny stuff in that. And then
late third act laughs in a comedy are very difficult.
Why is
you're
that?
wrapping up all your story points. And
you are truly working against the clock. Like Mike Myers said, he's like, at about 45 minutes in a comedy, start the clock, people want to get out of there.
Mm-hmm.
You've kind of, although your Anchorman's around 90, right?
Anchorman's 90. I think the longest one we did was Other Guys was like 145, but that's, I don't think we ever hit 150. Yeah, they're all around 90, 95, 140. They all live around there. But the endings are always the big thing. That's always what we talked about, was how do we do an ending that isn't just completely jive? Like, how do you do, like our most happy one we ever had was Ricky Bobby cannot win the race. And how do we have him win without winning? Like, because it's just too late that he wins the race. And Step Brothers, we wanted it to be a happy ending, but still deranged and demented. And,
I think Step Brothers is the weirdest ending. Like, the Catalina wine mixer is so fucking funny and insane. Like, an insane idea. As a thing, like, meet me at the Catalina wine mixer. It's just so insane. And then there's the Coda with the treehouse, which that wasn't a reshoot, right?
That actually was a reshoot, because we had an even crazier ending, which is still in the movie, where they go fight the kids.
Yeah.
And
that's my favorite joke of yours, maybe ever. They make Will eat the white poop, right?
Yeah.
The fact that the poop was white is the craziest detail. It's so insane and so wonderful.
And you know what I learned later? It's kind of an East Coast, or it's a geographic thing. Like, there are certain areas in the country where the old dog poop doesn't turn white. And I met some people that were like, what do you mean by white? Like, the other one is that Will bumped into Randy Jackson at an airport, and Randy Jackson told him he had signed like 36 samurai swords through the years because of the did we just become best friends scene too. So these are the things that movies do to you, where weird shit like Charles Napier's bizarre stories about getting hammered 50 years ago stick to you. So yeah, white dog poop is definitely one.
White dog poop is such an insane detail. I have a mean one that we did on Chappelle's Show. I feel like I told you this before. We did a sketch where Sally Jesse, you know, when Sally Jesse Raphael would send kids to boot camp?
Yeah.
Nelson Mandela.
We did it. It was, the boot camp was run by Nelson Mandela. I don't know why it didn't work. And
freedom.
So all the kids at the boot camp are wearing Mandela's boot camp t-shirts. And I remembered from when I was in camp, if you were too fat, they would have to put you just in an adult shirt, because they didn't get any large children sizes. So I made the fat kid in the sketch, wear just a white t-shirt because he was too big, for the imaginary logic of the fake t-shirts. So that's you have white poop. I have fat shaming a kid back in the early 2000s, back when we could do that.
It's all trauma. It's all pain. And we turned it into joy and laughter. So
yes, that's right.
What does it feel like? Both of you guys have created stuff that have found a life of its own on T-shirts and people just yelling out stuff in the street. What does that feel like when you see your art live on as part of mainstream pop culture?
McKay, you want to go first?
Yeah, I mean,
I'll go first.
My answer is a very boring one, which is it's the weirdest goddamn thing when it first starts happening. And I'll never forget, I was with my wife at a bar on Vine, because the Actors Gang used to be up there, and we had seen a play, or we were going to go see a play, and we went to get a beer, and Anchorman had only just come out a couple months before, and someone said, I thought they were looking right at me, 60% of the time it works every time. And I laughed and went, oh yeah, back at them. But then I realized they weren't talking to me. They were talking to someone else.
Oh, no.
And then I realized, I'm the director. They wouldn't recognize me anyway. And they were just using that line in conversation. And those are the weirdest ones, where people say it almost just like a part of language.
Right. There's something kind of scary about it at first.
It kind of is, because like our behavior and the way we think can be affected that easily. And yet it's also wonderful because it's absurd and it means people connected with this jackass joke that you had. But it is really, really strange hearing people after Step Brothers. I heard people walk by me on the street quoting lines, like saying a line, and it was like threw me out of my reality for a second. But the craziest one of all was after the Saints won the Super Bowl. I'm reading in the paper and just reading the article to see about the Saints winning the Super Bowl. I think it was the Saints. And one of the players comes in the locker room right after they win and yells, "It's the fucking Catalina wine mixer." And every player yells back, "It's the fucking Catalina wine mixer." And you're like, that's just, yeah, it's incredible.
But there's something where you're like, how did that happen? Like, we filmed it, and then you can't even do the math on it. Like, I remember, if I may tell my version of that. So there I was, sitting at the craps table. No, I remember hearing Rick James. We had done the taping for Rick James, but it hadn't aired yet. And Chappelle's wife was at a restaurant and heard people saying, "I'm Rick James, bitch," before it aired, because they had gone to the taping.
Oh,
where we showed
God.
it. And I was like, that confused me. And then somebody said, I was in Vegas and people at the craps table kept yelling, "I'm Rick James, bitch." And my first question was, why?
Wow.
Like, why were they doing that?
Wait, you didn't know?
Like, and then to your point, McKay, there was another thing where somebody, I think a congressperson said, insurrection is a hell of a drug.
Oh my God.
Like, after January 6th. And it was, I had to like look it up because I was like, what? Somebody said that?
that's real.
I believe they said in the halls of Congress.
Wait,
Wow.
So
that might be the best one I've ever heard. That's pretty crazy. As far as high stakes places for someone to quote or check something like that is really the almost overthrow of American democracy, and a thing you helped create was referenced. Like, that's insane. It also says a lot about our society in ways that are really boring that I think we should go into in depth right now.
I think if this is the point, I mean, first of all, this is the hour to do it in.
So can we play some excerpts from Adam Curtis documentaries and then we'll just talk about them?
Let's do voiceover for stuff we didn't direct. That's so fucking. That's also a funny thing with their age, McKay, where they were like probably 8 when Step Brothers came out.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, I mean, some of them. Kamara, 25.
Saints win? Yeah, they're probably they were teenagers, definitely are young teenagers, 12, 13, 14. Yeah.
Hit them right in the spot.
I mean, that one more than anything we've ever been involved in is like timeless because it's so juvenile and it's like a 4-year-old and a 60-year-old can enjoy it, So, yeah. But goddamn, that's a good one. The insurrection
with Step Brothers, did you guys feel like it's got an essence in the same way like Napoleon Dynamite has an essence, where it's like, 6th grade the movie? How did you guys get it from, what was the idea and how did you get it into like a movie?
Yeah, the basic idea was just we wanted to do another movie with John C. Reilly because we loved him in Talladega Nights. So we sat around for 2 days kicking around ideas. And I just said, this is all execution based. You have to do it right because otherwise this is the worst idea ever. But you guys as grown-ups who still live at home and your parents get married. And I just keep seeing you guys in bunk beds, but playing it real, like playing it straight faced, like this is the way life has taken us. Yeah. And both of them were just like, yeah, let's do that idea. And that was it. And then we wrote a 200-page script because we couldn't stop writing it. It was so enjoyable. But it was also just like weird, and you know this, like all of us know this. When we were kids, the idea that grown men could openly like be into comic books or video games, or like that was another weird thing that was going on, where like you could be 40, 50 years old and drinking like slushies and playing video games. So that was also part of it too, was just America took a turn. Like my grandfather would have wanted to punch everyone right now. And so that was also part of it.
Charles Napier would have wanted to punch everybody.
How cool the idea of that. Like, when I'm an adult, you're going to see. Like, you'll see. I remember me and a buddy of mine in like 4th grade were going to split a Trans Am. Like, we were going to like co-own a Trans Am. That was like a viable idea. Like, it was a viable thing that we were going to do.
Honest to God, you should go do it and make it happen right now. For real. Something would happen. You'd have a feeling you didn't know you could have. Like, or at least you could make a really C- documentary about it that actually is like a gross Hollywood kind of stroke job, like how they always make them about record company heads from the 70s. And you're like, who cares? The guy didn't play any of the music. But I think you should go call it Splitting the Trans Am by Neal Brennan.
My brother and sister had they had a car, and whoever was in the car when it broke down had to pay for the repairs.
Oh no!
Oh, that's good.
So they would like push the car into the driveway and act like it was fine.
So it's like putting the milk carton back when there's heart.
That's exactly what it was.
Just a little bit.
Yes. And then now you're responsible for getting, now it's your job.
My big thing when I was in 3rd grade, I said like a promise to myself. I remember saying to my parents, like, so when I'm an adult, I'm going to have money like you have money. And they're like, yeah, you'll have a job, you'll have money. And I'm like, how do I make it so that when I'm an adult, I still want to buy like 40 G.I. Joes and like realistic looking tanks and fill a whole room with like G.I. Joe tank battles. And they just laughed. And that made me more sad and depressed. And I was like, I can't ever lose this want I have. And you know what? I don't give a shit about G.I. Joes now. And I'm okay with it.
Yeah, but like that spirit lives on though.
Glory days in the twinkle of a young man's
there's something. This is not an adult's job.
Not remotely.
And then he's gonna come in with swords, and then like the young son is like, I want the company, and the old guy's like, no, fuck you. And we have to get a real office, a real skyscraper. That's not how I pictured you walking in. Try it again.
You wouldn't say it like that.
Yeah, it sounds childish when you say it like
say
a
it
child.
Cool, like I saw it in my head.
You have to.
We got to do a movie where Wolverine actually kills people and there's blood. Oh, fuck, they already made it. Cool.
All right, sweet. That's awesome, man.
Any other questions for us, gents? Or have we been at all useful or helpful?
This has been tremendous. Neal, this movie was the only feature film you've ever directed. Why?
Well, guys, a thing happens when a movie doesn't do well. And what happens is they don't know how to do forensics on why things don't work, right? So they looked at me, Jeremy, Will, and Adam, and they said, Will and Adam, you're free to go. Jeremy and Neal, you get in those cells, those jail cells. And Neal, you're gonna, you know, it's actually hilarious because I was thinking of like trying to think of anecdotes for this. I went to like a tarot card reader or something, like some kind of medium, before maybe 6 months before the movie came out, and the guy was like, he said like numbers, Like does 5.4 mean something to you? I think that's what it opened at, 5.4 million.
Oh,
But
wow.
he goes, you got
Right
a movie
behind
coming
G-Force.
out? I go, I have a movie that I directed that's coming out. And he goes, yeah, this one's not going to do it.
Oh,
But
wow.
you know, keep at it.
Wow.
Which is fucking hilarious. And but it's
Neil
like I don't
could
whatever.
direct.
I'm a comedian. I do good
He could.
hours and all that shit.
Neil could do stuff. I called Neil like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, because I've always thought way back when Neil's one of the funniest people walking around, and sharp and as hell, and he's got a little worldview too, which I always appreciate. And I called him like 2 years ago because he was on fire. And basically we had a nice chat, but Neil's upshot was like, I'm really loving what I'm doing. So no, Neil could direct and write if he wanted to.
Yeah, I never got the impression that I could. I direct a ton of commercials too. That's like a very good living.
So you're not director jail doesn't really exist like it used to. Like we were working with, the great filmmaker Alex Cox, who did Sid and Nancy and one of my favorite movies of all time, Repo Man. That guy legitimately got put in director's jail. Like, he did that movie Walker. It went way over budget. He did Straight to Hell. And like, they would not let him back in the 80s into the 90s. They really would put you in director jail. Nowadays, people are a little cooler about it because there's a lot of stuff getting made. People would actually go watch the goods if they were going to hire Neil, and they would actually go, this is funny. Like, but back then, they did not screw around.
Neil.
Yeah, it's also, movies are like a big commitment, and if it's not like burning a hole in your soul, like I did the movie because I wanted to hang out with Will and Adam, honestly. But and this has been probably the longest time I've ever spent with Adam, which is pretty sad. And but like that's, unless it takes a year. So if you don't, if it's not like personal, it's kind of like, let me do some personal shit. And that's why I do Sprite commercials.
Nothing more personal than Sprite.
That's why I do Chase commercials with Kevin Hart, because that means telling the story of Kevin going to the mailbox and finding a credit card with the Chase with Freedom Rewards. You get 3% cash back on travel and drugstores, and I wanted to tell that story. And then because I saw it, I'm Kevin's neighbor, and I saw it happen, and I promised him, Kevin, I'm going to tell this story.
What's harder?
He's like, and they'll pay me a shitload of money. I was like, I'll make sure of it, and they did.
What,
you should write that as a book. You really should.
Neil,
I know that. Yes.
What's harder? What's harder, bombing on stage or having your movie bomb?
That's a tough one.
I've actually
having
bombed
your movie
on stage.
bomb. Having your movie bomb is a slower, longer burn. Like it still bums me. You know what I mean? Like it still burns a little bit. Whereas if I bombed 3 nights ago, I'm like, I'll do another one. Whereas it takes a year to make it. So you're just pushing this rock up a hill, and then it starts rolling back.
I was a bad stand-up back in Philly. I used to do stand-up with Paul F. Tompkins in my late teens, early 20s. So I bombed, oh my God, like a good 14, 15 times. Nice. Like people flicking bottle caps at me, bomb. Nice. Having a movie or a project that you've worked really hard on bomb is worse, because Neil's 100% right. It's a slow burn. It's a larger realization. Yeah, definitely tough. I do think it helps though if what you made is good. Like, and I did feel like The Goods is a good movie. And I remember being pissed when like critics were going after it. I think I was like openly hostile on Twitter. Like, what the fuck? This movie's funny. Like, I was outraged.
Yeah. Have you ever tracked anyone down, Adam? Like, hey, how'd you write this about my shit?
No, because McKay's got 8 fucking raves for every one bomb.
No, you gotta stop yourself at that point. And one of the greatest joys I ever had was I did have a critic take back a bad review.
Oh, what happened there?
I had that happen once, and I've never experienced that before. But no, you gotta you got to take them in the gut. You got to take it like a body shot and just move on. It goes with it. It would be a little sad and sweaty. You'd be like George C. Scott in Hardcore if you did that, like crazed and on a mission. So no, I've never done that.
Well, which movie was
McKay,
that?
what's your favorite sketch that you worked on? SNL.
God, I was just telling someone about, I wrote a sketch, commercial parody called Old Glory Insurance. That was insurance for the elderly against being attacked by robots. And Sam Waters, it was like one of those.
Yeah, wasn't it in like 3 or 4 parts?
Yeah, it had like, it had different scenarios of the elderly being attacked by robots. And yeah. Sam Waterston just played it so straight. It was one of the first things I ever got made on SNL. So I still have like crazy just fondness for that. And I remember just being blown away, kind of like you were saying with Step Brothers, that like this ridiculous idea from 3 a.m. actually got made and is now on television. So what about you?
It was taped though, right? I mean, it was pre-taped, right?
Yes. Yeah, it was a commercial parody shot by Signorelli back in the day, like 95. It's online. It's Sam Waterston hosted, or he's the reverse mortgage kind of guy. And then this robot is just terrorizing elderly people and eating their medicine for fuel. And
I remember that sketch and going like, this is crazy. I couldn't believe it was on television.
Yeah.
It was like an insane thing to me.
What about you? Because you guys had so many moments on Chappelle that were moments like, I can't believe I'm seeing this on television. Are there any that
there was the one I liked the best was it was one where Chappelle was explaining why he could never do jury duty.
He made Thriller.
And we just went through 5 different scenarios. It was like the Michael Jackson trial, OJ, where he said, why did the LAPD study why did they solve Nicole's murder and not Biggie and Tupac? Nicole Simpson can't rap. Just fucking crazy shit.
Well, one of those lines from that you guys mentioned, you hear people say, something I say all the time is some people say cucumbers taste better pickled.
Cucumbers taste better pickled. Huh? What? Huh? Yeah. What? Yep. Yeah. It's because, and McKay, you'll relate to this. We needed a sketch so fucking badly. Like, we had no ideas.
Oh, it's the best.
And I read a Michael Jackson. It was the big Vanity Fair article that really implicated Michael Jackson. And I handed it to Dave. I go, this is it. There's nothing you can say. And then we were arguing, and then he started poking holes. I was like, we got to do this. We got to do this as a sketch. And it was like, we both were like, thank fucking God. Thank God.
Oh man, nothing.
We were desperate.
Thanks, Michael Jackson, for touching those kids.
Something is the best catalyst. You have to, nothing better than you need a premise right now, and that's a classic. That's a good one. Was that one of the first couple shows that you did?
No, that's what it was. Episode like 12 of season 2.
Wow.
So we were. Not only did we had so few ideas that we did a garbage episode, the episode before it, where we just showed sketches that didn't work. Because, like, I remember Chappelle sitting in his dressing room, he's like, fuck it, just tell him to cancel the show. I was like, dude, let's just do shit that didn't work. Because we had a bunch of them that were funny. And Mandela's Boot Camp was on there. There was one where him and Charlie Murphy and Donnell, they were the time haters, where they traveled back in time to hate on slavery. They hated on
He ain't even got shoes on.
Yeah, and then Charlie goes Charlie's like, look at these motherfuckers. I could live being a slave. I could never go out like that. And then we cut to Charlie as a slave looking at himself. And like he gets all scared. And then Dave shoots the slave master. It gets nothing. It got nothing when we showed it. Like at the garbage episode, it bombed. to the point where he's like, Dave goes, I guess only me and Neil think that's funny.
Oh,
It sounds
that's
so
funny.
fucking bad. Just
Oh,
a
that's
bunch of
good.
like refuse. There was another guy, there was a dating service on there where you would describe the kind of girl you wanted, and then dudes in the field would holler at them.
Dudes in the field.
Service. It was the holler dating service. The guy would go, let me holler. So just off. And also, a lot of them should have worked anyway. It was just one of the things like, why didn't that work? No idea. But we made it work in the garbage episode. But we were fucked. We were absolutely fucked. And somehow came up with we scraped together a bunch of shit at the end, and they ended up being good.
Neil, what do you mean like they didn't work? Like in the process of
they
shooting
did,
it,
they
or
bombed?
So you show them to the audience, and it just gets.
We'd show them to the audience, they would bomb. And me and Dave used to do a joke where if a sketch didn't work, we'd go a very smart sketch. Not funny, thoughtful, very thoughtful sketch. Really makes you think.
I had a sketch once on SNL that he killed at the table, which was, there's 1,000 stories of sketches killing at the table and then bombing in dress. But this one really had killed in an extra way. And I think it was Farrell. No, it was Farrell, definitely. And he was eating a giant tuna sub while telling Rachel Dratch that she's terminally ill. And that was it. It was that simple. It was just a big, messy tuna sub. He's not playing it for laughs. He's just, he's busy. He's got to have lunch. And it's one of those big, wet tuna subs. And the fucking, read through, it just destroys. And then you get out on the studio floor and you're like, oh yeah, that sandwich is small. This studio is big. So I'll never forget just a whole crowd. I mean, that studio's not that big. What's it hold? 200 people or something like that? And just dead silence, like they're watching a drama scene with the doctor telling someone they're going to die. And he happens to be eating a sandwich and no indication that anything is funny whatsoever. And Farrell just walked off and was like, that sandwich was good.
Was Rob Lowe in that sketch?
I cannot remember.
Because he told a story. You know how that's like, you ever hear Lorne? It's like Lorne at his smuggest, but also absolutely funny and great, where he goes like, no, I've seen that sketch 4 times. I wrote it twice. But because Rob Lowe told a story of a sketch that's almost identical to that, eating shit, like killing at the table, eating shit on the air.
It happened a lot, but that was the worst one I ever experienced, where you realize how small that live thing is. Because I was thinking about you saying these sketches bombing, and you're like, well, you're playing them on a monitor for a live crowd. Like, that's a weird way to watch a sketch. And I think you've kind of seen it now with TV. There's way more comedies that don't give a shit about the live. Because it used to drive me crazy on SNL. Like, really? We're going to let this live studio audience pick the entire show.
Yeah.
Like, that's crazy. And now people have gotten way more relaxed. Like, the laugh tracks went away from shows like The Office and, Parks and Rec and stuff. Yeah. And, but yeah, man, they had power. They had absolute power. And then sometimes you'd have a terrible sketch and like someone would drop a glass. So like the cast would get the giggles and it would kill. And then it would get chosen for air. And I'd go like, are we going to drop the glass again? Like the drop of the glass was an accident or a wig would come loose. And I was like, are we going to purposely have the wig come loose again? And then no, and then it would just bomb. But yeah.
A question for both of you guys. What's the worst joke that did well? Like you didn't feel good about yourself afterward. Like I made that joke and people actually liked it.
Man.
I mean, there's so many.
That you disgusted yourself?
That you don't even feel good about it.
There's a sketch on the first episode of Chappelle Show that's so fucked up and irresponsible where I don't even remember the premise was, and it worked, where it was like about older people shitting on hip hop and then saying like, this has been happening for years. And then we show Nat King Cole singing, and then he just dumps champagne all over a woman.
I gotta say, I fucking love this sketch.
I know, but it's like I don't even know like. I look at it now, I'm like, what? We were fucking like animals.
Well, no, I don't mean morally reprehensible. I mean, like, this is not good comedy. Like, this is hack comedy, but people loved it for some reason.
I think, McKay, I think that what happened for us, and it probably happened for you too, at a certain point, they just expect. There was a thing where we couldn't do bad if we did bad sketches, they would not laugh. Like, and I don't know if you guys have that probably with the movies where it's like, no, your standard is so high that like I saw remember the Step Brother screening that I went to that was like, it was like 2 hours and 25 minutes.
Awful.
It was like a wild screening.
Oh, it was one of the worst. I still reference it as one of the worst early screenings I've ever done for anything I've ever worked on. I had to go re-edit the entire movie afterwards. I mean, it was disastrous, like dead silence. Neil's right, though. I think, like, knowing Neil, how sharp he is, he's trying not to have those moments. And certainly when I was at SNL, you realize pretty quickly it's not worth it to get something on that's super cheap. However, because you're grinding away every week, it's gonna happen. And the worst one for me, that's really embarrassing, was that we had that band Hanson on, and they had that song Mbop.
Yeah.
And my wife and I had gone for our first trip together. We'd gone to Italy before we were even married. Went and stayed.
It was illegal. It was against the law. It was against the law, and they did it.
I'm older, but back then you couldn't be with a woman unless you had your feet on the ground in a government-sanctioned facility being observed by witnesses. And also my wife, no, I was going to make a horrible joke. Okay, so my wife and I are in Italy, and they play Mbop every 10 seconds on the radio. I get back to SNL, that band's on, and without thinking about it, I write some sketch about people taking the band hostage and making them listen to the song 1,000 times like we had to listen to it. It's a bad sketch. We're blocking it on set, and I'm like, shit, man, why did I write this? This is a hacky sketch. And the little kid drummer from Hanson, while we're blocking it with Beth McCarthy, the great Beth McCarthy, comes up to me, and I'm like, well, you're supposed to be standing over here. And he goes, well, I'm not going to stand there because it's stupid, and starts yelling at me in front of the whole crew. And Beth McCarthy just comes over and puts her hand on my shoulder and goes, don't worry, Adam, I got this, and then handles the whole situation. I then begged Lauren to cut the sketch. And Lauren was like, why would I cut it? It's working. And it went right to air. And there was like a little bit of like the Indianapolis delivered the atomic bomb. That's why it got sunk and they all got eaten by sharks. So I got what I deserved from that experience. But that was embarrassing.
That's the weird thing about SNL is that if you don't like a sketch that you wrote, if it's after Wednesday, there's nothing you can do.
Oh, absolutely. I asked him to not put it on, and it went to air. Yeah.
That's so
that was
crazy.
embarrassing. That was a bad one. But I did get yelled at by the 9-year-old drummer of Hanson. So I felt like
That's
there was
great.
there was Greek justice involved in it.
Is that the worst? Is that the worst time you've been yelled at because of a sketch that you were trying to do?
Oh yeah.
Like a 9-year-old's got to be tough. That's got to be tough.
Yeah, that was humiliating. I'm a grown. I mean, even though I was young, I was like 28 or something. Still, I'm 6'5". I'm standing on set. I think I was head writer at the time. And the 9-year-old drummer of Hanson's like, I'm not kidding, like yelling at me in front of like 20 crew members. So yeah, that's the worst.
Is that
and,
why?
And the thing is, McKay. But the thing he's not saying is that McKay shit his pants in front of the whole crew.
I mean, I wasn't saying it because I didn't want people to know about it, and it wasn't because the kid was yelling at me. I had some health issues as well, and then you could see us. I don't want to get into it. I had like an over saturation of a certain mineral, so that the poop was a strange color. So people started joking about that. They called me purple shit for the next 5 years. By the way, I just made the worst joke I've ever made. So there is.
We did it right here on
Cinephobe. I think we get off on that.
Now, McKay, I can't let you go without asking you this question. On our podcast, Cinephobe, which is the podcast where we review movies that are poorly rated on Rotten Tomatoes and try to ascertain whether they're accurately poorly rated or maybe they didn't just get a fair shake. Cinephobe, wherever you get podcasts. we have a recurring bit that whenever in these movies we sense heavy sexual tension between characters, we will drop the Will Ferrell sound from Eastbound and Down, where he says, "Woo! You feel the tension in the air right now? I feel it in my plums." Was that 100% improv by Will, or did you guys work a framework there?
I did not direct that episode. I directed one of the episodes of Eastbound and Down, so I wasn't there on that day.
Fair enough.
But I know
Great
that
question.
wig was straight up a Ric Flair wig. I think that was even in the script, that character has hair like Ric Flair. And I know Will was improvising up a storm, and so was Danny McBride. So I'm just going to guess, but you'd have to confirm that with Danny McBride or Jody Hill. I'm pretty sure he improvised that.
I also think I've seen outtakes of that, and it seems really improvised because I think Craig's in that scene, and he's trying not to laugh, and it's Will's. You know, as McKay said, it's like driving a Lamborghini. It's like Will Ferrell's so goddamn funny.
Very relatable.
No, I still haven't. It's the closest I've come is directing Will. All right, fellas. I feel like we did it.
You guys did a
I
great
really
job.
got the
Yeah.
word out.
You did a great
We
job.
did.
And me and Adam have another fundraising podcast soon
Okay.
to do.
Also, Gates
So-
in DeSantis. Is that what?
2024.
Yeah, Gates DeSantis 2024. We got
Wow, it's a
there's
strong ticket.
it's
Naughty
after-
favors.
Yeah, this is where the real fundraising happens, fellas, if you know what I mean.
They put the fun in
After
fundraising.
2:30, we get down to business.
Thank you guys so
Thanks,
much
guys.
for joining us. It's
Yeah,
Adam
you got
McKay and Neil Brennan.
Congrats, you guys, on everything. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah, we
No.
did it. Thank you.
Bye,
Appreciate
boys.
it.
Take care, McKay. Peace, man.
Later, Neil. Love
Peace,
talking
buddy.
to you.
See you soon. You too.